Mike's Daily Podcast.
That's what this show is, Mike's Daily Podcast. My name is Mike.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Mike Matthews, and welcome to Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley 10. And this is episode 2438. My name is Tim. No, it's Mike. I forgot. I got distracted. And sometimes you have to watch out because your wisdom teeth can get impacted, and that's not good. That is not good at all. The show's called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And that's good. That's a good thing to do. Have that name for your podcast. Hey, tell all your friends, even though
Mike's
I know that
Daily
you don't listen
Podcast
to the podcast because whenever I ask questions or, throw a topic out there, that I think that you would want to talk and respond to, you never respond, so you don't exist. Ergo, you're not there. That's okay. Thank you for listening, even though you don't listen, even though you don't exist. But please tell your friends about the podcast. You go to all the YouTube and the podcast places. Yes, the show is on YouTube. There's a link, and I throw in there a special little videoette for every podcast. So you can find that at mikesdailypodcast.com. But every place you can listen to a podcast, they push all the podcasts that everybody knows about. So the people that are popular get more popular. The people like me that are doing it all on their own, that are by themselves, that don't get paid off by a million corporations or what have you, we do it for ourselves. So it's good to help out the struggling artists, is what I'm saying. Well, I'm not struggling monetarily, but I am struggling to get the name to get this podcast out there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, that being said,
and here's today's podcast picture.
The podcast picture today is of a wonderful, beautiful place that I went to yesterday in Half Moon Bay. I have not been to Half Moon Bay since November of last year. And my lovely lady friend and I finally made time. And it's important to do that, to get out there. Isn't that right? The late, great Basil the Boxer. He and I used to go there all the time. Oh, it was so utterly important that he and I went there as many times as we could. And he's no longer with us, but we actually took him with us yesterday. We have him. He's in a box, a beautiful wood box that kind of looks like brindle. His coloring was brindle, the black and white mixed together, the stripes, and this box kind of almost looked like the wood almost has an appearance as if it's brindle. And we took him with us and walked about a good 3 miles on the beach with him. And I remember I used to walk with him all the time on the beach. We'd go there. We'd try and go at least once a month. Sometimes that wouldn't happen. Work would get busy or other stuff, and we wouldn't get out there, but I tried as much as I could, and I need to go more often. So I occasionally like to throw in a little verse here and there from the good book, as it is called. And I did grow up kindergarten to 8th grade. Kindergarten to 8th grade was a Baptist school. So we were taught, well, Baptists don't have priests. We were taught by, we weren't really taught by pastors, but we did have to go to church like at least once a month. And then when I went to high school, I went to a Catholic high school. So then I was being taught by priests and brothers, and they would teach us, and then we would have to do some kind, I think a mass, a class mass at least once a year. Is that? Or no, wait. Well, there was one big one every year, and then I think every month we did something. But I'd like to take you to a book that is in the Bible that is called Galatians. Not Galoshes. Not Colossians. Not galoshes are shoes. Right? Aren't they? I don't think. I guess we don't commonly use those. That name. They're boots. They are boots. And they help keep your feet dry. There is not a book in the Bible called Galoshes. But there is one called Colossians, and there's one called Galatians. Now, I'm going to read this to you real quick. It says, and this is King James, so get ready for some serious language here. Now, the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these. Close your ears if you're under the age of 10. Adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath. How much wrath is there on the freeways of California? I drove 80 last night coming back from Half Moon Bay, and I got a little bit of. I had no wrath because it was after 9 o'clock at night, so things were moving along quite nicely. But there's so much wrath on 880 usually, and that's the first time I've been on 880 in a long time. Since I last was on 880, there have been several murders on 880. It is a treacherous, scary freeway. And there is just, it worries me when I get on there, but you sometimes have to drive on 880. I'll tell you though, it is not the ugliest freeway. It goes by some beautiful spots, but careful of wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings. How much, our whole social media culture is based on envyings. Oh, look at them. Oh, look who they're with. Oh, look how much fun they're having. Oh, look at Mike's podcast picture today. He's at the beach, Half Moon Bay yesterday. Oh. I mentioned murders already. The verse continues. Drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. But, as we go outside a cafe anyway, we're bringing you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. The last place on earth. Here we go. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And they that are at Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Now, Galatians was written by Paul. Paul was the one that later, after Christ died and came back and ascended to heaven, there was Paul, and he was the one that killed Christians. And then he was struck with God's bolt of, it was light, wasn't it? It was like he had this, the epiphany on his way to Damascus, wasn't it? And then this is all coming back, sort of. But he is important in Christianity because a lot of the beliefs in later religions, or I should say denominations of Christianity, have to do with how the words that Christ said, how he set up Christianity. It basically is, how do you spread the word of Jesus to the world, to people that aren't Jewish, and Gentiles is what they would call what they are known as. And it's so a lot of his books that he writes, which are all in the New Testament, he's talking to, okay, this is what you need to know if you're going to create a church that follows Jesus. This is how we spread Christianity. So basically all kinds of rules of what to believe, what you should do. He was a mastermind of setting up the template for what would become Christianity. And he is quoted very often by pastors. I know this because I work at a radio station that all day long has sermons, has preachings, has pastors, and they always quote from any one of his books that he wrote in the New Testament. And many of his verses are quoted over and over again. And there you go. But my point is that you do need to think of the good spirits, of the good fruits. Keep the good fruits in your life and you need to take some time for yourself, which I did yesterday going to the beach, and I should go to the beach more often. But as I was walking the beach, I'm like, why don't I go out here? Why don't I make time for this sort of thing? You have to make time where you can. It seems like everything is important, especially when it comes to work and tasks around the house. Delegate some of your responsibility or cut out what isn't absolutely necessary to your day to clear your schedule. Ask for help from your family and friends. This can be asking a child to do chores or your spouse to run to the grocery store. Delegating tasks like this can free up 20 minutes to spend on yourself. Find jobs to outsource. It may hurt your budget a little, but find a service to mow your lawn or a cleaning service to clean the house. Learn to say no. Don't keep taking on endless tasks. Understand that you have a limit and learn to say no to things without feeling guilty. If you're bogged down at work, find help. This can be someone under you at work or a coworker or even asking a boss to help lessen your load. A year ago, the company that I work for, the radio company, took on 2 new stations. And with all of that and bringing that new station in and all that work involved, I had to ask for help. And it was interesting. I thought, wow, I don't really ask for help that often. I need to do that more often. Accept not doing things perfect. Other people are bogged down with the need to get everything done just right. This can mean you stay at work, answer work emails on the weekend, simply can't go to sleep until all the dishes are done, except that you can't get everything done. At a certain point every night, put everything down and focus on doing something you want. Realize that most things can wait and you'll have another opportunity to do tasks. Also, taking time away from important tasks can actually improve your performance. Now, getting to the beach takes at least an hour from where I live. Also, once you're at the beach, you don't want just to go to the beach and then leave. You got to spend some time there. So, like yesterday, I spent 3 hours there. And I spent the time strategically. I set aside the time at the end of the day where the sun was setting, because the sun sets here in California over the Pacific, and it sets beautifully over the ocean. In some parts of the country, you don't have that, and I really enjoy that and try to take advantage and appreciate that, because you don't see that everywhere. So it's more difficult to schedule 5 hours away from everything that I need to do in my world, but it is important at the same time to walk on the beach, to see the sunset, to listen to the waves. You need time for yourself. Schedule in your free time. We are so good at scheduling in tasks for everyone else. It's important to do this for yourself. Put in a slot each day, or at least a few times a week, that are as solid as a work or family commitment. Block off an hour in the evening that you can't break unless it is an emergency. This doesn't need to be time alone, just time spent doing things that you enjoy. It can be watching a movie with a friend, going out to dinner. Making time for yourself can come in many forms. Maybe it's podcasting, which I like to do. try to do it daily. I missed a day yesterday, but I was at the beach. Learn what you're making time for. Finding specific activities that you are looking forward to will not only give you a more clear picture of what you want to do, but a concrete goal of why you're making time for yourself to start with. Change up your routine as well. It may not always be possible to squeeze in time during the day for yourself, but you can make a point to make time before or after work. Instead of getting up at 6:30 to rush off to work, get up a half hour earlier and spend that time doing something you like before your day starts. Put down the electronics. It's easy to get sucked into the social media world or television or binge watching. You may enjoy these activities, but they can also consume all your free time. Many times, without even seeming like it, for an hour each day, put down your phone, computer, your TV. Get the most of your time by experiencing it in the present, not mindlessly wrapped up in an app. So that's some ways to make time. Find time in your schedule for you. And I pulled that from WikiHow. WikiHow.com has helped me out many times with some good ideas. So we're outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth. And I wanted to say that I have found an interesting thing. And that is, it seems that the years that end in 4 tend to have the best music. Now, I don't know that it's absolutely true for like 64, 74, 94, 2004, 2014. But I will tell you, 1984 was quite a year. And I found that out driving home a week ago today. I was coming home and one of the local radio stations plays Casey Kasem and his countdown. And they pull a week that's generally around the time of when they're airing the show. So they picked a week in May, but they went back to the year 1984, and I could not believe the songs I was hearing. Now, you may not like these groups that I'm about to say, but check it out. 1984 was quite a year. For one thing, you had big hits by Phil Collins, Against All Odds, Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now. Let's hear it for the boy, Denise Williams. I've talked a lot about Denise Williams and her son because I had known them through a friend. So I had got to meet them before 1984, but they were very cool. Oh, Rick Springfield. So he's only really known now for Jesse's Girl, but he had a song called Love Somebody that was from a movie that was kind of big that year that he was the lead actor in. You gotta love somebody. It's late, you gotta love somebody. Oh my gosh, and then there's Julio Iglesias and Willie Nelson, To All the Girls I Loved Before. But here, I'm gonna pull some of the... So Steve Perry had his solo hit, broke away from Journey and did a solo album. He had the song Oh Sherry, it was big in 2004. Footloose, Kenny Loggins, You Might Think, The Cars. You hear all these all the time on 80s radio. Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper. In at number 11, and this is the week of May the 12th. So we're about 10 days past that. But in 1984, Tracy Ullman had a hit song with They Don't Know. Cause they don't know about love, they never heard of love. Oh, and then Kool and the Gang, Tonight. I forgot how that goes. I know I like that song though. Baby, tonight. Whoa. No, I'm thinking of somebody else. That's Flash Gordon. Head Over Heels by the Go-Go's, not Tears for Fears. That would be the next year that came out. Or did that come out in 84? Everybody Wants to Rule the World, I think, was out in 84. Maybe Head Over Heels came out at the end of 84. Oh, check it out. 1984 was Night Ranger, Sister Christian. Uh-oh. The Reflex by Duran Duran. Shalimar, Dancing in the Sheets, because of Footloose. The Footloose soundtrack was big that year. Oh my gosh, Alan Parsons Project. Don't answer me. Don't break the silence. Don't let me in. It was the first year that Madonna charted. Her song Borderline was climbing the charts in 1984. Private Dancer, Tina Turner, 1984. Laura Branigan's last big hit song, Self-Control. You take my heart, you take my self-control. She died of a brain aneurysm. It was much later. I think it was in the 90s, maybe 2000, early 2000s. Rock You Like a Hurricane, The Scorpions. Here I Am. You still hear that on rock radio all the time. Pointer Sisters in 1984, had a song called Jump for My Love. Van Halen had a song called Jump in 1984. They had the album 1984, also had on that Panama. You had Cyndi Lauper first enter the charts with Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and then Time After Time. You had Weird Al Yankovic have a huge hit with his cover of Eat It, making fun of Beat It. In Excess first got into the charts in 1984. Really got into the charts with their song Original Sin. Dream of white boy, dream of black girl, wake up to a brand new day. Radio Gaga, Queen, 1984. Who's that girl running around with the Eurythmics? And the Style Council. So that's what got me all thinking about it. So I'm listening to this countdown, and in the drive home, the 15-minute drive home, I hear the Style Council's My Ever-Changing Mood. Wonderful song. Paul Weller, who had previously been with the Jam, which Tears for Fears sang about. They sang in the song Sowing the Seeds of Love, that one verse where it goes, kick out the style, bring back the jam, sowing the seeds of anything at all. That's the Style Council. He was talking, Roland Orzabal talking about how he liked the Jam better than Style Council, but both with Paul Weller. Then Slade had their huge hit. Now, their song, So Here It Is, Merry Christmas. So here it is, Merry Christmas, now it always, every day. That is played constantly in England, or definitely in every Christmas Doctor Who episode. But it has become an iconic Christmas song. They had the song Run, Run Away, which was a big hit for them in 1984. The video is hilarious if you ever see it. It's pretty crazy. And they had a big hit in the United States. They were well known in England, but then they got big here in America with that song Run, Run Away. And Joe Jackson had You Can't Get What You Want Till You Know What You Want. Oh, it is a jam. That song is wondrous. Oh, I love that Joe Jackson album too. The Verdict or something is the name of that. Then Talk Talk had their song It's My Life in 1984, which then No Doubt would cover later on. And the Pretenders had Show Me the of Your Son and Sail Away by the Temptations. Oh, I meant to also mention Laid Back was the name of the band. They had a song called White Horse, which if you listen to it now, it is just the weirdest techno-y song by, I think, a couple Germans. In fact, the songwriting credits are to Laid Back and Seven Dwarfs, but they were just very kooky and nutty, and they very German techno. Oh, kind of like what's that band? They had the song Audubon. Okay, I cannot think of them now. Rats. Oh, shoot. Well, you can fault me. I couldn't think of the name of a band. I know my cousin's husband loves that band. It'll come back to me in a moment. At any rate, and Yes, with Leave It. Yes had a bunch of hits. And that, Adult Education, Hall & Oates. Adult Education. Chicago was on the charts. They had a upbeat song called Stay the Night in 1984. And Van Stevenson, who would later form a band in the country world called Black Hawk, he had a song called Modern Day Delilah. That was a top 40 hit. I think it may have peaked at number 40 or just inside the top 40 in 1984. So 1984, a big year. How about the other King of Suede by Weird Al Yankovic, also in 1984? I gotta stop looking at this because there are just too many great songs in 1984. So would it be true to say that the years that end in 04 have some kind of magical, just this aura about them that somehow good music comes out in that year? Well, if you go to 1994, some of the big songs were by, you had music from The Lion King, so Elton John. You had Crash Test Dummies with I don't know if that's the best song ever, but Ace of Base had a bunch of big hits that year. They first arrived on the scene with The Sign. Lisa Loeb and her big song from Reality Bites, Stay, I Missed You. And Counting Crows had, that was their first big year with Mr. Jones. Okay. So there's a couple others you could look up. But then if you go to 2004, that is the year of the Black Eyed Peas. They first arrived on the scene with all their big songs. Like Let's Get It Started. And the one that they did, There's Something Wrong with the World Today. But I'm thinking of, Outkast had a couple big songs that year. The Way You Move, I Like the Way You Move, and Hey Ya. Black Eyed Peas. I don't know if that was the year they came out with the Where's the Love. That's right. Where is the love? Then Avril Lavigne. That was like her first really big year. Maroon 5, that was the first year that they arrived on the scene. And Usher had a bunch of hits. Eminem. So that's 2004. 2014 is Happy, Pharrell Williams. It's John Legend with All of Me, that big song for him. Meghan Trainor's All About the Bass was in 2014, and Sam Smith first arrived on the scene in 2014 with Stay With Me. If you go back in time to 1974, that was the year of the Steve Miller Band getting really popular with the Joker. Paul McCartney's side band Wings with Band on the Run. You had The Entertainer from the movie The Sting by Marvin Hamlish. Bum 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 bum. Da 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 da. Elton John had a big hit in 1974 with Benny and the Jets. You had a couple of Wings songs. A couple of Elton John songs. Steely Dan, Ricky Don't Lose My Number. John Denver had a couple hits in 1974. Then you go to 1964. Well, that's the Beatles. Speaking of Paul McCartney. And Roy Orbison, Oh Pretty Woman. The Beatles, though, I Want to Hold Your Hand. She Loves You, I Feel Fine, A Hard Day's Night. The Supremes had a bunch of hits in 1964. It was all Beatles and the Kinks had You Really Got Me. Okay, so something about the Fours seems to do it. Rolling Stones in 1964. Time Is on My Side. I don't know. I might be completely wrong, but it seems something about the Fours does it. 2004 was also jumping around. So back to the O's. 2004, I mentioned Black Eyed Peas. I mentioned No Doubt covering It's My Life. Gwen Stefani in 2004 had that solo album. Remember that had Hollaback Girl? And what I know We're Cool. Was that from her or from No Doubt? But definitely Hollaback Girl. And The Killers. The Killers were huge in 2004. But Autobahn was by the Kraftwerk. That's right, Kraftwerk. I completely forgot about Kraftwerk. My apologies to all my German listeners. But I don't have any listeners. That's right. I forgot. Folks, I think I've probably bent your ear a little too long about music and about my theories. But thank you. And galoshes and all the other stuff that we covered today. But look, we're outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valleyton, the last place on earth. Look who's here.
Mike Matthews, that's interesting. I have a Kraftwerk album, Mike Matthews.
Really? Are you German or something?
No, Mike Matthews, I like Kraftwerk. They're really interesting, and they talk about cheese, Mike Matthews.
No, it's not Kraft cheese. It's Kraftwerk.
Yeah, they sing about cheese.
I do not think they sing about cheese. The last big hit they had in the 80s, it was a dance hit called Telephone. And they had all these telephone sound effects, but they were always sort of a techno thing and laid back. Might have even been somehow, might have had the same members, who knows, but sounded very similar.
Okay, whatever, Mike Matthews.
Look who else is here. Oh, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Yeah, Kraftwerk was the best band ever. Mm-hmm. You know, I was listening today to On the Media, a wonderful radio show, has become a big podcast. It's been around for quite a while, on the radio at least, and it's done out of WNYC in New York. And they were discussing how, after that horrible shooting last week, they talked about how the killer had a manifesto. And they talked about how that is a trope the media falls into way too often, talking about whenever somebody does something like the Unabomber or one of these nut jobs does a horrible, horrible thing and kills people, that they leave a manifesto. And it's really not a manifesto. It's a loose term, and they were talking about how that should not be used, the word man. They just had rants. They just had ramblings. Maybe like what this podcast was, but it was still to elevate it to the word manifesto, as if this was a well thought out piece of literature that could be the template of something or what have you. No, it's just ramblings. It's a rant, is what it was. I thought that was a very good point. And I look forward to 2024 for all the great music that will be coming out then. But tell me, have I completely lost it? Is it not anything, my theory? Does it not hold water, or does it? Let me know. 336MM Daily, 3 + 3 = 6. MM as in Mike Matthews Daily, as in what this podcast will try to be this week, because I will try to make the time, as should you, to do things that you enjoy. It's quite all right. Go ahead and do that for yourself. 336MM Daily, 3 + 3 = 6. MM is Mike Matthews Daily, is what this podcast, for the most part, is. Sometimes get interrupted. You can also email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. And, by the way, that song that I was talking about by Laid Back was a #1 dance track in the U.S. I did not know that. Thanks in part to help of Prince Prince urged his record label, Warner Brothers, to release a 12-inch single featuring their song White Horse on one side and When Doves Cry on the other. Interesting. That according to RollingStone.com, who also wrote an article about how 1984 was a good year, as did the Hollywood Reporter. So there you go. Maybe there's something to it. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!